Welcome to the Ash Cloud. I'm Ash Sweeting. In 2024, Denmark made headlines as the first country to implement a carbon tax on livestock emissions. What was less reported was the accompanying tax deduction announced on the same day. The Danish livestock sector has continued to lead news cycles as this policy is implemented, most recently around farmer claims of sick cows due to a feed additive linked to the program. What's not in doubt is the politicisation of this policy both in the EU and more broadly. Today I'm joined by Tobias from the Danish Agriculture and Food Council to discuss the Danish approach to reducing the climate impact of their farming sector and how that approach can be leveraged in the Global South, especially through farmer-owned cooperatives to address the climate, agriculture, landscape and food security nexus. Tobias, thank you very much for joining me today.
With pleasure.
You've just got back from Brazil, from Belém, from the COP. Do you want to start by telling us about your experience there?
It was actually really nice. I was very skeptical going to Belém because of the logistical challenges. But coming back, and I came back a little bit early because I didn't dare banking on too many nights at exorbitant prices. In the end, the prices came down because fewer people came to Belém, and it was actually really nice to have a haircut, so to speak, on the number of participants at the COP. I think around 50,000 is a better number than the 80 or 90,000 that we were at before.
And what, in terms of outcomes, how do you see things evolving, changing, moving forward, or roadblocks from your time there?
A really nice thing that is a first timer at Belém is the agri zone. And that gives me hope because it was a space full of very nice and dedicated people. It's an Embrapa, so the Brazilian Agricultural Research Institution campus. That literally takes participants into the rainforest or secondary rainforest, which was a great experience. And it also puts a lot of practitioners at the COP, a lot of agriculture practitioners. I met people working with coffee, sustainable coffee production in the Amazons. These people who have practical solutions to how to lower emissions and sequester carbon were there. And that's really what gives me hope. But also, I met some incredible people, some AgTech people, who also give us a lot of hope, who came to us because, well, I'm with the Danish Agriculture and Food Council, and we're party to this tripartite agreement in Denmark. It also sets out an ambitious research agenda to bring down emissions. And so they came to me and said that they are bringing, from Australia to other parts of the world, working on products to come to the market that will lower methane emissions and other things, which really is exciting to see that all that is happening.
So on that note, can you just outline for us what the Danish government has done in terms of addressing livestock emissions and where's that at? And I guess it's a fairly bold and move in terms of being one of the first countries to take such a big step. So there's a huge amount of leadership there, but that also comes with challenges.
Yeah, so Denmark has a domestic reduction target that is very ambitious. It's a 70% reduction target by 2030. And within that, there is a sectorial agricultural target of reductions of between 55 and 65%. So after the last elections in Denmark, it was a given, there was a parliamentary majority that agriculture should also contribute its share to this, and that should be that's cast out in stone and be a specific amount of reductions. Now, in the Danish Agriculture and Food Council, that represents both farmers and farmers-owned cooperatives, We have, let's say, a political opposition towards taxation and other burdens on farmers. Um, However, since the political equation was the way it was after the last elections, our leadership, so our president, decided to negotiate. And we have this tradition in Denmark that when we seek to resolve the biggest issues in society, we try to do it in an inclusive manner so that the parties to the solution and to the challenges are at the same table. So in this case, the minister for the environment and taxation and agriculture, and so there were six ministries, I think, came together and took invited also to the table the representatives of the farmers and the nature organizations, also the labor unions and the industry, to find a solution. And that was a very long process. It was also a process where the thing to be resolved, which at the outset the discussions were all about climate change. In the end, the deal, which is then the tripartite agreement, covers both climate and biodiversity issues, a lot of water issues in a comprehensive approach that actually sets out an agenda for voluntary land reform that is also fully compensated, and that's critical. So that is, if you like, new additional climate finance to finance to finance the necessary land use changes in Denmark and very significant afforestation efforts, taking land out of production to sequester more carbon and to enhance biodiversity and to also protect the internal waters of our country. At the same time, it also introduces, and that's what's drawn a lot of headlines also globally, a first tax on livestock. It's a tax on emissions from cows and pigs, and it uses it uses some figures. So each cow is attributed a certain figure of how many emissions it's responsible for per year, and then it sets out an approach that whereby farmers can, well, first of all, establishing the world's first carbon tax. The tripartite agreement also establishes the world's first carbon tax deduction on livestock. And I think probably from a global perspective, that is equally, if not more important than the tax itself, because the tax deduction is set at a level that corresponds to the mitigation potential. So in the Danish case, it's said that from livestock in our production system, mitigation of livestock emissions from cows up to 40% are possible. Now, that means that the tax deduction has been set at 60%. So this tripartite agreement is not an anti-livestock agreement, quite the contrary. It does not have as an explicit aim to lower livestock numbers. And that is extremely important to secure the societal backing for this deal amongst farmers, and also to secure food security for the larger population. Denmark is a food exporting country, and we take pride in the exporting our pig meat and dairy products throughout the world, and that, being very climate efficient products, we hope that also contributes to greenhouse gas emission savings outside Denmark and outside Europe. So this deal, it really establishes this new principle of a tax deduction that corresponds to a mitigation potential. Of course, this mitigation potential will be regularly updated. So as technology hopefully progresses, the figure of 60% deductions, would likely go down, because the mitigation potential, and that's what I take also from some of the conversations I had in Belém, hopefully the mitigation potential for livestock production will further decline, sorry, further increase over the years to come, and therefore the tax deduction should naturally decline as well in years to come. So now we have this hands-on agenda in Denmark for the government to actually establish an inventory of climate mitigating measures in livestock and other parts of our industry, agricultural industry, so that farmers can more easily implement this deal.
And how's it progressing? I think there certainly has been some headlines recently about some um, potential negative impacts of some of the technologies that have been used to um, claim that tax deduction. Is there anything you can share about what's been going on there? And before we jump into that too deeply, I think the other side of things is this is a very comprehensive agreement. As you said, it looks at biodiversity, it looks at water, it looks at a whole range of things. And it must be frustrated when one single aspect of a big comprehensive program tends to grab all the limelight and eat up all the media oxygen when it kind of detracts from the much broader ambition.
Well, of course, it being the first uh, tax on livestock emissions, it's natural that attracts a lot of attention. So we're fine with that. Of course, what we do is when we talk about the agreement outside Denmark, uh, especially when we talk to farmers in our World Farmers Organization, who come to us and say, "How could you do this?" Then we say, "Well, colleagues, please listen to us. We actually feel we got a good deal, and these are the reasons why." And we list the example with the tax deduction. We also mentioned the technology agenda that the government committed to, setting out all these new measures, and those measures can, they can be technological, and as you rightly say, there are challenges also with the implementation of this deal, because actually what we have done in Denmark is we started implementing it on day one. So on the 1st of January, the government introduced a subsidy scheme for feed additives for cows, and also an obligation on Danish agriculture for I think it's around 90 or 95% of conventional producers to actually sign up to this voluntarily, and if not, well, then there will be a regulatory follow-up. So this is how we work with a carrot and a stick. So the carrot being the subsidy scheme for this, uh, for this program, and the stick being that if farmers then do not sign up to it, well, then there will be a legislative regulatory follow-up. And because farmers have actually implemented the measures, you're right. There are reports and there are challenges, and one of the challenges we have is that we have too few feed additives available on the market, and naturally when you go from, this is a giant scale up. So you had trials on limited number of livestock, and suddenly you go to full deployment in a small country with around 500,000 livestock in total. Of course, the organic cows are not part of this, but still with a significant number of conventional livestock. And yes, we've seen challenges, and we're looking into these challenges, how to mitigate them, if they are all correlated with the use of this feed additive or not. I mean, these are ongoing investigations. And as I said before, and this is what we're saying, we would really welcome, more feed additives to be brought to the market, so as to have a bigger spectrum of measures to apply, tools to apply.
Is there more diversity in terms of the approaches other than using a feed additive? Because we know that emissions are heritable, so you can breed for lower emissions. We know that there's significant, up to 30, 40, 50% variation just within a herd. So selectively just culling the top of the 10% highest emitting cows will decrease the emissions of that herd by far, far greater than 10%. Are those other types of interventions part of the current program, or are they scheduled to be introduced at some stage going forward?
So, in answer to your question, the measures is not just about a feed additive. It's also about manure management. And in the longer term, as you say, it's about breeding. It's about genetics. It's about farm management. And these are actually some of the practices that can also be shared, not just in Denmark, but globally. Which is one of the things we try to set out in Kenya, where we are taking some of the thoughts that have been in the Danish tripartite agreement, and we seek to apply them in a different tropical context within the framework of a new project that is supported by the Green Climate Fund, and that we are implementing together with the FAO. And in partnership with colleagues from Finland and Netherlands and Kenya, with cooperatives in Kenya's Lake Victoria region.
Could you please elaborate and tell us more about this program? How big is it? What does it aim to achieve? You know, how Denmark is one type of production system, and temperate and highly technologically advanced, and Kenya is a much more of a traditional tribal or traditional type of a production system, and tropical. So how do you make that jump?
Well, the common denominator here is that we are all the partners that I just mentioned before. We're all members of the same World Farmers Organization. The World Farmers Organization is the umbrella organization of national farmers and cooperative organizations in a lot of countries, more than 70 countries throughout the world, and growing. And I guess it was back. At the COP in Katowice in Poland in 2018, so a few years after Paris, where also the discussion started on climate finance for agriculture. Back then, the numbers were extremely low. They are still far too low. I think the last report I saw was that now we have reached about 7.2% of global climate finance for agriculture and forestry systems. Back then, it was half of that amount, and we said, okay, well, we need, of course, to lobby for an increase, and to some extent, it seems that we have been together with other people who have been lobbying for that increase, somewhat successful, but from a way too low starting point. So there's still a long way to go. But then we also thought, well, we don't just want to talk about this. We actually would like to see to show the change ourselves. And back in 2018, in the Danish Agriculture and Food Council, we had just decided upon our own vision for Danish agriculture to be climate neutral by 2050. And the work we set out to do with our colleagues from MTK in Finland and LTO in the Netherlands was the global dimension to that vision. So our starting point was that it is good that we decarbonize in intensive livestock systems in Europe, in Northern Europe. But it would be even better if we could share the insights from that effort with colleagues in other countries. And then we realized that one of the reasons why we are able to be frontrunners in the Netherlands and in Denmark and Finland is because of our farmers-owned cooperatives. Um, that is, I mean, farmers-owned cooperatives have been there for more than 100 years. And in the olden days, it was all about capturing the added value in the value chain, so that the farmers would not be exploited. Now, this value chain approach that cooperatives take is actually quite critical when it comes to climate action, because it allows for a broader view on emissions throughout the value chain, and it also means that the cooperative, the company, because it's owned by its farmers, its members, it has a certain power over its members in order, so it can request changes. At the same time, it enjoys more legitimacy than perhaps a private company that could annoy its suppliers by making more demands, because it actually gives back the value added of these requests to the farmers at the end of the year through dividends. So this was the thinking that if we would be able to work, to share the experience from Danish and the Scandinavian cooperatives and Dutch cooperatives in another context, well, then that change could also be possible. So we teamed up with an entity. It's a Dutch equity development agency called AgriTerra. At this time, it was still led by its founder, Kees Blokland, who was a very inspiring figure. Back in the day, he had founded Via Campesina, and then he had turned to the more intensive side of Dutch livestock production and cooperative development. And we set out to also see if we could find a match, and we wanted this to be a green climate fund project. Now, why is that? Well, that's because the Green Climate Fund is the implementing instrument under the Paris Agreement. It was originally conceived in Copenhagen at COP15, I believe it was. It was subsequently agreed upon in Cancun, which also means that the Danish government takes a big interest in the Green Climate Fund and has historically been supporting the Green Climate Fund. So when we reach out to them, because one of the challenges with this kind of climate finance is that Green Climate Fund project proposals are not easy to make. So we had to learn about this whole universe of accredited entities to the Green Climate Fund, of which there are about 100, and how to work with these accredited entities. Well, also to find an accredited entity to work with. So we were blessed in the sense that we actually managed to partner with the FAO in its capacity as an accredited entity to the Green Climate Fund. And in FAO, we find a really excellent partner, which with the longest track records of this kind of proposals. But still, we needed to fund this proposal together with AgriTerra, as it happened. So AgriTerra put their own money. So Mr. Blokland managed to secure, I think it was 200,000 euros in capital from the board of AgriTerra, and in the Danish Agriculture and Food Council, we went to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Denmark, and we were very happy to and thankful of getting a grant from them, so that together we were able to finance this project proposal development that cost more than 400,000 US dollars, and of course also took a lot of time, because subsequently we would then have to scan a lot of NDCs, so all the national determined contributions, see which countries put an emphasis on agriculture development, which countries, a subset of those countries also care about cooperative developments, and where in the end, where would there potentially be a fitting, a mix, a match, and that ended up being the case in Kenya. So I think it was just after the pandemic started that we set out to we selected Kenya, and we set out to actually to work on this project proposal, which took a few years to conclude before finally in February of this year, 2025, we then got the board approval from the GCF for a $50 million project. And that is $50 million. That is about 30 million from the Green Climate Fund, about 14 million from the government of the Republic of Kenya, and 6 million from the government of our Kingdom of Denmark.
And what does the program look like? How many farmers? How many cows? What are the key points or the key attributes of the program?
So we went to Kisumu, which is in Western Kenya on Lake Victoria, and that was back in December of 2021, and we did consultations. So which value chains locally were of interest, and we also work with our colleagues in the Kenya Farmers Federation in Kenaf. We we established that there were 6 value chains that ended up being dairy, coffee, tea, and poultry, African leafy vegetables, and fruit trees that were of both local and let's say global interest, because we had to find a mix where our expertise, the project, a key component in what has become the Tunza GCF project. And Tunza is Swahili. It means to do better, to take care of, and that's what we brought to the COP. We said, okay, we need to speak Swahili at COP 30. But a key concept in a component of Tunza is this notion of international partnerships. So you will have a group of what we call agri-poolers, and agri-poolers are agricultural advisors, farmers, and colleagues in cooperatives from Denmark, Finland, the Netherlands, and Kenya, who will travel to the Lake Victoria region and give advice to about 130 agricultural cooperatives, each representing about 500 or more farmers owners. So we'll reach a total of about 80,000 farmers in the Lake Victoria region throughout the implementation period, which runs now from 5 years, from 2026 onwards towards 2030. So and the advice that they will give is on how to make these farmers-owned cooperatives more climate efficient in the value chains that I just mentioned. Now that can be advice on measures at the, let's say, at the dairy, at the creamery itself, but it can also be advice on measures in the field amongst the members and the owners of the cooperative. So that is the challenge and the opportunity to explore. In addition to the 50 million in grant funding for Tunza, there is also a $10 million loan component. So here it's money from 2 Kenyan banks, Equity Bank and the Cooperative Bank in Kenya, that sets up a loan line for these cooperatives to take out loans to invest, if some of this advice would inspire them to buy new equipment or other stuff, or other herds, or whatever is financially sound to do, that will bring also a return on investment, because these loans have to be paid back, and there is also interest, albeit lower interest, associated with the loans.
And the the grant side of it, what's that going to be spent on? Is that advice? Is that, potentially education? Is there any technology in that, or is there any new or better irrigation practices for the crops or value or in terms of, post-harvest storage, all those sorts of areas where there are losses. Obviously the food that gets wasted has the same environmental footprint as the food that doesn't get wasted.
Yeah.
Plus it doesn't make any money in it, it's waste. So does it include all those sort of components as well?
So the grant component really sets up the structure of this. Project, so Agricultura and the FAO are both um, what in the GCF terminology is labeled executing entities.
Mhm.
So if you like, the FAO in Rome, they are the accredited entity. They own the project, and they have the legal responsibility towards the Green Climate Fund to oversee its implementation and also to reach the significant greenhouse gas emission savings that Tunsa should produce, which towards 2030 is 1.2 million tons,
Mhm.
and towards 2035 is a total of some 4.3 million tons of greenhouse gas savings. So really significant numbers that also empowers Kenya to actually um, increase its ambition in its NDCs, because this is additional climate finance that is then making it possible for Kenya to step up. Now, in answer to your question on the actual like spending of the 50 million, so that is then divided between FAO as an executing entity and Agriterra as an executing entity. Um, on the FAO part, the approach is a classical FAO approach, where leaving no one behind, establishment of farmer field schools, for instance, the also technical assistance to the counties. There are 14 counties in the Lake Victoria economic bloc. Each of these 14 counties are also supported by specific funds from the Kenya government inside the 14 million Kenyan co-financing goes to the counties, to that part of the implementation of the project. So in these counties, there's really a lack of technical expertise to help farmers, especially the most vulnerable ones, become more climate efficient. On the Agriterra side, which is the one that we have focused on, we're working with cooperatives that are already established. Um, Actually, it might sound a little bit cruel, but and we can do it because we know that the FAO component is there as well. But we are leaving some behind on the Agriterra side, because we feel that there is a missing, let's say, there is a missing link where the a group of farmers who are better off and still very poor, but better off and somewhat organized. They have the potential, if they get the resources, to actually scale up, and they have lacked support. And this Tunsa project recognizes that here's a silver lining. With Tunsa, we invest in that part of the agricultural society, um, and the idea is for them to produce more with less. Now, I can share this now because now the project is approved. It was controversial somewhat in the process, because for instance, the inclusion of the dairy value chain, it was never said to us officially that there was a problem, but I mean, our consultants came back to us and said, well, they had informally been told that perhaps it would be faster if that value chain was left out. And a few years ago, there were some efforts to defund livestock and to defund also the dairy value chain, and we stood up to that. We did that in official consultations on the ESG guidelines with the GCF through the World Farmers Organization. We stood up to that also in the Standing Committee on Finance, and we stood up to that in this project proposal process because we felt that it was the wrong way to go. It was assumed at the beginning of this process that all investments in livestock would automatically cause increased greenhouse gas emissions. Fortunately, the FAO came out with some new modeling in the middle of our project proposal process, which recognizes that changes of management practices can lead to slight reductions. So we jumped on that. We probably feel that the figures that we included in this project are very modest, but we accepted them just to get this value chain on board. What I feel is that it's extremely important, also since, and this is what we're happy to see in this new report from the Standing Committee on Finance Forum on Agriculture, that there is a lot of potential in mitigation in the livestock sector, and so that potential can be further explored, and it is included in the Tunstead project.
On the different approaches between the FAO and the not leaving anyone behind and the let's find the find the best farmers and work with them. A number of years ago, I saw some survey data on the Australian livestock industry, and in that, roughly 5 groups, roughly 20%, and there were 20% of livestock, cattle, and sheep farmers who were actively trying to grow their business. 20-odd% were trying to improve their efficiency without actually having more acreage or more hectares. 20% were waiting to hand on the operation to the next generation. 20% were waiting to retire, and 20% were hobby farmers who were doing it as a part-time side of things. So in terms of where you're going to get the most impact for your money, if you've got the don't leave anyone behind approach, but you've got 60% of the operations are actually not trying to do anything differently. You've got a very steep hills to climb in trying to drive change in that approach, and the fact that you've got a foot in both camps, I think, balances those challenges quite well.
Yes, I think these numbers are quite universal. That we have all these groups. I mean, and if we want to undertake climate action, of course, all those groups can contribute. But where we see a particularly big potential is for the ones who want to stay in the business and who want to develop the business, and that is a subset of the global farming community. So I mean, it's a sensitive topic, but we are also faced with a big climate crisis, and sometimes it's good also to be honest about things. And it's true that a lot of very small farmers in a lot of developing countries have jobs in the cities. So and they don't have the time to do a lot of the things. So in that sense, we also feel that working with cooperatives is also a way to include some of these people, because if a cooperative is strong enough, you can have a larger scale cooperative which is which is actually including smallholders. So that is a very workable structure, and you can have they can actually outsource a lot of the management to people who are working with the cooperatives or in collaboration with your cooperatives. So yeah, it's about finding these practical solutions and to accept, not just accept the change, but also to get to the point where change becomes exciting. I have a son who's 4 years old, and he's doing a lot of puzzles. So I thought some time back that I could teach him something about making puzzles by telling him to do the frame first. It's a little bit like when we're looking at all the graphs with all the planetary boundaries. You try to then make the frame and then to fill in the picture afterwards. And he just didn't want to do that, and rather what he does is that I want to put the puzzles together that I like the most. And you know what? He's faster than I am. He's much faster than I am, and I think it shows that if we take a playful approach to some of these hard challenges, we can actually, as a human race, we can do a lot more than we think. We just need to be ambitious. So it's good to have um, ambitious targets, but we should not be too prescriptive always about exactly how we want farmers in all kinds and cooperatives in all kinds of different settings to set out to be more climate efficient.
I love that example of your 4-year-old and the puzzle side of things. And I tried the same lessons on my daughter with the same levels of success. So that and the cultural side of things and what works in one context and what works in like the Danish approach we were talking about before would work in a country like Denmark, but there's many countries around the world where something with that much regulation wouldn't work, or that trying to create that level of community buy-in and having everyone at the table would also be challenges just because of the nature of all our different societies and cultures.
Exactly. And actually, part of what also works in the Danish context is exactly that even if we are a highly regulated society, we take the carrot approach first, right? So our members who have to implement the tripartite agreements, they do get to sit down and actually, juggle the land puzzles first themselves and see if they can come up with a solution. And what I hear, I mean, they haven't come. We have broken the country down into a number of local tripartite zones, so to see exactly which kind of which lands have to be taken out. But in quite a number of these subzones within Denmark, they have been able to reach local agreements already. So this discretion at the very local level, it really contributes to ownership, and it makes the whole thing yeah, more human than if you would just come with a map and say, okay, we have designated these areas to be, for the uh, well, for forestry and no longer for your cows.
People have ownership in it, so they have much more. They feel bought into the system.
Yeah, exactly.
So back to Tunza, is there or are there plans to implement a similar project in other countries through a similar sort of a mechanism, obviously adapted to whatever that society and culture happens to be?
So the cooperative partnership for climate smart food and forestry, which I've been counsel to for the past 5 years or so, has ambitions to take what we learned from this GCF project with the FAO in Kenya and to apply it somewhere else. We feel that we now also what we felt was inherently true just because we felt it, namely that cooperatives being strategically placed above and below the farmer at the same time, uh, owned by the farmers, yet having management that can instruct farmers to change practices. Um, I mean, this feeling that they are strategic was something that we had to prove in this process. So our consultants spent time and energy doing research and having that stated. Now we have this GCF project. We hope that it can be a reference. It's up there on the shelves amongst the other GCF projects. And the GCF is the gold standard for climate action projects. And it was important for us that amongst the projects on the GCF shelves, there was also a project that focuses on sustainable incentivization and this kind of land use change approach that we take. Now, I will be stepping down as counsel after all these years, and I'm happy to give the relay to the next counsel, who's likely being from Agriterra, so amongst our partners, and I'm sure that he will take us further, and we'll see where we go.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. And before we go, is there anything you'd like to add that we haven't already discussed?
I think that it is saddening to see that once again the UNFCCC agriculture negotiations have failed, which shows that a small minority of countries, because of the UNFCCC process and this that requires unanimity, are able to block progress for everyone else. That is disheartening, but it is good. It's really uplifting to feel the spirit of the AgriZone, and kudos to the Brazilian COP presidency for introducing that novelty. I hope that the next COP will also see an AgriZone, so that we will, going forward, we'll have three zones. We'll have the blue zone, the green zone, and the AgriZone. And then I really hope that not just a few, but a lot of exciting agritech innovations will come to the market in recent years, in years to come, because those are the innovations that we need. It was really inspiring to meet some of these companies that invest and put a lot of efforts into developing this stuff, and that does give hope for the rest of the sector. That the livestock sector, I think, has come out on the other side of its long shadow. When I started working with climate and agriculture some 13, 15 years ago, agriculture was not really on the it was not really a topic that environmentalists cared about. Then it all flipped, and for some years it was as if agriculture was a bigger culprit than the oil industry. And of course, I mean, now there's a rebalancing taking place, and agriculture is there, and land use change is significant. So that's actually why we need to pursue this agenda of sustainable intensification, is exactly to make space for land use reforms, land use change that frees up space for nature and biodiversity and sequestration. And I hope that will happen going forward.
Tobias, thank you very, very much.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Ash Cloud. Please subscribe to Ash Cloud if you've enjoyed this podcast, where I will continue to discuss food sustainability with guests who bring a deep understanding of the environmental, political and cultural challenges facing our society and creative ideas on how to address them.